And now, a flash of lightning.
Flash.
AM 680 WRKO.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another Flash of Lightning. My name is Lightning. This past week has been a holy week for a lot of people celebrating Passover, and then this weekend is Easter, and a lot of people are celebrating that. So what I've decided to do for the Flash of Lightning this week is we're going to do a holiday-themed flash, and we're going to focus on Easter, and more specifically, the tradition and history of Easter. So, we're going to travel around the world and we're going to dive into how various cultures celebrate in different areas around the world celebrate Easter and what they do. So this is basically one big history lesson that I find very fascinating, and I think a lot of you will as well. So let's dive right in. First up here, we are heading to Bermuda. Bahama, come on, pretty mama. All right, so that's where we're going. And what happens down there is a weekend affair, if you will. They kick off the weekend on Good Friday with Kite Fest. And that is exactly as it sounds. A lot of people come from all over. Of course, the locals participate in this as well. And they fly these homemade and just beautifully done kites. And of course, people from all over come to partake in this. And throughout the weekend, the entire celebration, though, of the weekend of Easter, a lot of people celebrate by eating codfish, and they also celebrate by eating traditional hot cross buns. So that's what happens in Bermuda. Now we're going to head to Antigua, Guatemala. Now, what happens there is very cool. All of this stuff I think is super cool, and I'm fascinated by how people celebrate the holiday. What they do there is they cover their streets in colorful carpets throughout Holy Week. Now, these are all in preparation for the Good Friday procession, and it carries on through the weekend. But these carpets that they lay down in the streets throughout the city are made from flowers, colored sawdust, fruits, vegetables, and sand. I think that's wild. That's so cool. Definitely look that up and see some pictures because it's beautiful. All right, heading to the Philippines. This particular tradition in the Philippines is not for the faint of heart. What they do there in the northern area of the Philippines, a few people there actually nail themselves to crosses to honor Jesus' crucifixion. Now, I'm not sure the specifics of how that, like, do they have EMTs on the scene? I don't really know. Obviously, however they celebrate and honor Jesus is honorable. This is a different, whole other ball game what they're doing there in the Philippines. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I really don't know what else to say about that. I mean, all these traditions, of course, are serious, but this one's real serious. So that's what's going on in the Philippines. Let's head to Mexico. I found that Mexico has a lot of really fun and interesting celebrations. So what happens in Mexico is a lot of Easter celebrations are actually celebrated over a span of 2 weeks down there. And one in particular, what they do, it's called the burning of the Judases. Now, what happens with that is that they're not burning real people. Let me just say that up front. What they do is they make giant paper mache Judases and they blow them up with fireworks. I mean, that's kind of fun, right? That's totally different. You know what's also fun is what Australia does. They have decided to do away with the Easter Bunny, pretty much. They have a rabbit problem in Australia, apparently. They're considered pests for destroying crops and land. So back in the early 90s, the Rabbit Free Australia group launched a campaign to replace the Easter Bunny with the Easter Bilby, or rabbit-eared bandicoot, as it's called. So now, companies over there, various companies, candy companies in particular, they have now taken to making up chocolate bilbies for Easter. So hey, kiss the chocolate bunnies goodbye in Australia. They're all about the chocolate bilbies. So I think that's kind of cool. That's very unique, of course, to their culture. Now we're going to head to Florence, Italy, where what they do, they celebrate a 350-year-old Easter tradition there, and it's called the Explosion of the Cart. What happens with this? It's an ornate cart, beautifully decorated cart with fireworks. It's led through the streets of the city by people in colorful 15th century costumes, and then it stops outside the cathedral in the city there. And what happens is the Archbishop of Florence then comes out and lights a fuse during Easter Mass that then leads outside to the cart and sparks a lively firework display. So that's what I call kicking off Easter with a bang, literally, when you have the Archbishop of the Florence Cathedral come out and light a fuse to literally start it with a bang. I think that's kind of cool. I would love to witness that. Apparently this tradition is meant, the history of it, it's meant to ensure a good harvest. So 350-year-old Easter tradition there in Florence, Italy. Up next, we are heading to Finland. Children here in this Scandinavian country, they dress up like witches and they go begging for chocolate eggs in the streets. They make up their faces here and they cover their heads with scarves, and they carry bunches of willow twigs decorated with feathers. Now, in addition to that, in certain parts of Finland, people also burn bonfires on Easter Sunday, which is a Nordic tradition that comes from the belief that the flames from this bonfire, or the bonfire that you have, ward off witches who were believed to fly around on brooms between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. So that's what's happening in Finland this weekend for Easter. Meanwhile, over in Poland, they celebrate Wet Monday on Easter Monday. Now, what is Wet Monday? Well, Wet Monday is a tradition where people go around trying to douse each other with water. Now, that can be through a bucket of water, it can be through a squirt gun, whatever, you name it, water balloons, you name it. Now, one is to promote Polish culture worldwide, but secondarily, there's a legend that says that girls who get soaked on Wet Monday will marry within the year. So that just kind of corresponds here. It just happens to be on what they celebrate is Polish Easter. So that's what happens in Poland for Easter. Let's now head to France, one particular area of France called Hawks, France. What they do each year is they make a giant omelet. That's right, they make a giant omelet that is served up in the town's main square. The omelet uses more than 15,000 eggs and feeds up to 1,000 people. Now, the tradition behind this, or the story goes here, that when Napoleon and his army were traveling through the south of France, they stopped in a small town and ate omelets. That's where this whole tradition comes from, and Napoleon apparently liked it so much that he ordered the townspeople to gather their eggs and make a giant omelet for him and his army the next day. So that's what happens there in France based on that tradition. Let's head to Greece. Now, on the island of Corfu on Holy Saturday, they celebrate a tradition called pot throwing. And it's exactly as it sounds. Residents there take pots filled with water and they throw them out their window, smashing them onto the street. I gotta tell you, I would absolutely hate to be a tourist there on that day and have no idea what was going on. If I was walking down the street, next thing you know, I get doused with some water from above. That would be very unpleasant. So for those of you out there who find yourself traveling around the Easter time, you might want to avoid the streets that day. But that's what goes on in Corfu, the island there in Greece. And apparently the tradition is to celebrate and welcome spring, but also symbolizes the new crops that will be gathered in those new pots. So that makes sense, right? All right, let's head someplace a little bit closer to home for all of us here in the United States. We're heading to Washington, D.C. This one I think a lot of you are familiar with, but of course it is worth mentioning. For over 130 years, the White House has hosted the Easter egg roll on its South Lawn. That is something we certainly can look forward to seeing this weekend here on our televisions, as it usually is broadcast. All right, up last here on the list, going to the Holy Land itself, Israel. We're going to Jerusalem, of course, in particular. Christians celebrate Good Friday by walking the same path that Jesus did on the day he was nailed to the cross, which I can imagine being in the holy city of Jerusalem must be an experience in and of itself. And to walk the same path on the same day that Jesus did must be unbelievable. It must be like I'm having goosebumps thinking about it right now. I'm not even anywhere near that area, but that is something that they do there in Israel. And people, of course, travel from all over. I mean, this is like a pilgrimage, if you will, that people partake in this. And then, of course, on the Sunday itself, on Easter Sunday, many pilgrims do attend a church service at the Garden Tomb, which is the area it is believed that Jesus was buried. So that in itself, that's the Holy Land and how they celebrate there on Easter Sunday and Holy Week. My name is Marita. This has been a Flash of Lightning, a special edition of a Flash of Lightning, if I might add, because it has been all about the history and the Easter traditions from around the world of how they celebrate Easter. So I hope you and yours have a lovely Easter and you celebrate your traditions in the best possible way.